When the Empire rose from the ashes of the Republic, there was next to no hope for people like them. The Jedi had been snuffed out. Those who supported the Republic would soon see the same fate. Though over the years, things began to change. They came to the conclusion that in order to change the state of the galaxy, the Empire had to fall. Sector to sector, star system to star system of movement began to spark. What started as hit-and-run attacks undertaken by unorganized, unlawful scum morphed into an army. That army itself united under one cause: rebellion. The first major blow they dealt the Empire came soon after the destruction of Alderaan. The Death Star was destroyed, and with it, Grand Moff Tarkin and whatever frightening schemes he had were lost. Though the Empire retaliated, and victories like the one at Hoth were widespread, yet it didn't burn out their fire. Still they pressed on, hoping to grab a hold of the pedestal that the Emperor sits upon and yank it down with the might of a starving rancor hunting its prey. But there's one thing the rebels can't seem to understand. The Empire is not prey, no. The Empire is, and always will be, the hunters. If they call themselves Rancor, then we are the Krayt Dragon, tunneling beneath them until we unleash an unstoppable might that overwhelms them, crushing the one thing they hold so dear: hope. Admiral Versio stood aboard the bridge of his Star Destroyer. Beyond him was the forest moon of Endor. It was here where the Emperor had decided to unleash the grand plan he had concocted. This backwater location would serve as the last stand for the rebellion. Such a grand plan required considerate steps to be taken to ensure it was executed without a hitch, and the Admiral had his orders, though it was the individual he spoke to that had yet to receive theirs. Commander Iden Versio stood with confidence behind the Admiral. The last name they shared was no coincidence. The commander was the daughter of the Admiral. Iden, though, was not a member of the Imperial Navy like her father. She served in a special force known as Inferno Squad. Though their numbers have been reduced by one since their inception, there was no underestimating how effective the squad had become. Commander Versio, the Admiral resumed with his speech, now turning to face Iden. Your orders during this stage of the plan are simple. Reinforce the ground forces and stop any advancement they make towards the shield generator that protects the Death Star 2. Iden herself felt a small chill race throughout her body at the utterance of Death Star. She was far more familiar with the structure than most. She had been present for the destruction of the first iteration of the Planet Killer, even flew alongside Darth Vader himself. When the station imploded, she crashed to the surface of its target that day, the fourth moon of Yavin. Let other Imperials tell the story, and she evaded a base filled with rebel scum and escaped without alerting a single one. Yet, she knew the base was half empty, save for the ones who stayed behind and celebrated the victory more than others. Regardless, she's among a small group of survivors from that day, and they all share a determination to not let those events repeat themselves. We'll be ready at once, Admiral. I'm sure you will be. There was a brief pause in the words of Admiral Versio. For a moment, it seemed as if he wanted to say daughter. At least, that's how it felt from Aiden's perspective. Yet, he was only relaying further orders. And if you encounter the Jedi Skywalker at any point, inform Lord Vader's division. He wishes to deal with him personally. Aiden nodded in approval as the Admiral signaled that she was clear to leave her briefing. Waiting just outside were the other members of Inferno Squad, Del Miko and Gideon Hask. We have our orders then. Hask rose to meet Aiden. The pair always seemed to be in competition with one another. We do. Ground support. And any encounter with the Jedi is to be immediately reported to Lord Vader. Hask scoffed at the notion as the team headed back to their ship. Quite frankly, I do not see the importance behind Skywalker. He's scum just like the rest of them. The only difference is he believes in that foolish religion whose worshippers are all dead. Del Miko took a few steps ahead as they neared the lift, taking them back to the hangar. Well, he is the one that destroyed the first Death Star. Maybe they just want to make sure he's out of the equation this time around. We could do that ourselves. Isn't that right, Commander? Hask hoped to elicit a response from Aiden, yet she seemed stuck in her stoic demeanor. Hask took note and responded to his own statement. Well, I personally believe so. Soon Inferno Squad were back in their ship, a Raider 2 class corvette they called the Corvus. All members were decked out in their Special Forces uniform, which were a stark contrast to their Stormtrooper Corps counterparts. A sleek jet black armor highlighted their intimidating presence. Miko liked to call them the more compact version of Death Troopers, and of course Hax thought they were better than them. I didn't believe the comparison was unwarranted, as they both served their function for the Empire, and right now their function was holding the ground on Endor. We just received word that the Rebel strike team that they dispatched have arrived on the surface. Aiden relayed the news to her team. Just as the Emperor planned. Hask seemed to boast as if it was his plan. Nevertheless, that was their cue to make their way to the surface, as the rest of the rebellion was soon to arrive. The plan for Inferno Squad wasn't to intercept the strike team, which is something they found a bit odd. Instead, they were only to assist when the fighting started, almost as if they were crowd controlled. As the Empire sat patiently, the Rebel strike team finally landed on the forest moon of Endor. Amongst those that gave their assistance in the stage of the mission were among the most decorated members of the Rebel Alliance. There was Captain Rex, a relic of the previous Clone War who sought to restore a republic he was created to defend. General Leia Organa offered to join the strike team as well, if not for anything else but to ensure that the team's leader, General Han Solo, came back in one piece. Most notably, there was Luke Skywalker. At this point, he claimed the title of Jedi Knight in the footsteps of his father. However, he knew the steps his father took led to a place that Master Kenobi believed he could never return: the dark side. Skywalker knew a confrontation with Vader was on the horizon. It was destined, but he was sure it would end with the rebirth of Anakin Skywalker. That was all to be dealt with soon. Right now, the critical step was to destroy the generator that protected the Death Star. Though the mission had a lot of unexpected hurdles, mostly in the form of the Ewoks, a species that is native to the forest moon. Though, through some impressive wizardry displayed by C-3PO, the Ewoks agreed to help the Rebel strike team in their mission, but the future still weighed heavy on the heart of Skywalker. So much so that he confided in his sister Leia the truth. He told her of their shared lineage and what their father had become. Luke made it clear that he needed to face Vader alone. Leia even pleaded with Skywalker to run away from everything, yet he was stern in his choice. Skywalker left the Ewok village under the cover of night and found his way to the nearest Imperial installation to turn himself in. Word of the surrender of Skywalker spread throughout the Imperial station on Endor like wildfire, and soon reached Inferno Squad. Gideon Hask roamed through the halls of the Corvus, which was docked on the installation of the world, to inform his squad mates of the news. Skywalker surrendered. A large hint of disappointment was mixed in his tone as Iden Versio and Del Meeko turned with shocked reactions. Excuse me, he did what? Meeko had heard tell of Skywalker, even Jedi of the Old Republic, mostly how valiant and steadfast they were, the last to surrender before an important conflict. Though maybe this was a good sign. Even the Jedi now had doubts about their chances against the Empire. He surrendered. Hask continued. He told the commanding officer he was alone, but we know that isn't true. Lord Vader has already ordered a search for the others. Iden knew that the search would end with conflict, meaning their purpose of being deployed would be coming soon. Then we better prepare, she said. This could be part of their plan for all we know, so be ready for anything. Affirmative, Commander, Hask said as he slid his helmet down over his head. The slight hissing sound as it clicked into place was almost euphoric for him, as he knew the end of the war drew near. As a matter of fact, all members shared in this feeling as they exited the Corvus and made way to the final battleground. Things for the Rebel strike team seemed to be going as planned. The shield bunker that protected the Death Star 2 was in sight, and the Imperials inside didn't even put up a fight. All that was left to do was arm the charges and send this installation sky high, leaving the Rebel fleet with an open door to destroy the space station looming above. It became clear, however, that their luck was running out. An entire squad of Imperials soon charged inside the base, and now General Solo and his strike team were the ones surrendering without a fight. All this happened just as the Rebel fleet arrived. It didn't take long for everyone to realize the terrible, horrible truth. It's a trap. A battle in space erupted with a dizzying amount of TIE fighters flooding their viewports. It was almost too much for even the veteran pilots to comprehend. Yet they held out hope that Solo's strike team on the surface would pull out the victory necessary so their true assault could begin. The only issue there was the surface of Endor was in no way under control. Once they were escorted outside the base, the amount of Imperials waiting for them even made Chewbacca wince with fear. Solo couldn't help but think that this was it. Did the rebellion finally run out of hope? Just when things seemed as if they couldn't get worse, C-3PO called out to the Imperials gathered around the shield bunker. That droid's an idiot, Solo thought to himself as stormtroopers rushed over to where the protocol droid was shouting from. Solo then turned back to Leia, just hoping that she had some idea of what to do, but even she had a defeated demeanor about her. I guess this is it then. Just as Solo seemed ready to admit defeat, the battle cries of Ewoks rang out, and not long after did they hear the pain-filled screams of stormtroopers. Ewoks perched among the trees, then sounded their horns, a signal to emerge from the greenery of Endor and assist their new rebel friends. Arrows began flying through the air, striking Imperials with a precision that was almost terrifying. Chaos soon broke out as the rebels held captive seized the opportunity to regain their weapons and join in on the fighting. Inferno Squad heard the blast of fire and knew that this was the time to make themselves known. "Let's get moving," shouted Commander Versio. With her TL-50 heavy repeater firmly in her hands, she rushed forward, Del Meeko and Gideon Hass moving quickly to close the gap between them all. When they emerged, the chaos created from the Ewoks inserting themselves in the Imperial business had only deepened. "What the hell are those things?" Meeko wondered as he saw a quartet of them using the most primitive of methods to destroy an ATST. "Whatever they are, they just made themselves enemies of the Empire, so kill them!" Iden commanded as they opened fire on Ewoks and rebels alike. "For the Emperor!" Hass exclaimed proudly as his blast of fire made contact with every individual he targeted. The battle was certainly immense, much more than expected if Iden was to be honest with herself. If this was meant to be a trap, then a battle this big shouldn't even be occurring. If this was meant to be a trap, then every rebel would already be dead. Could this indicate a fault in the Emperor's plan? Absolutely not. This just means they'll have to adapt and end this useless war once and for all. "We need to get inside the bunker, let's go!" shouted General Solo as he and Leia Organa retreated back to the blast door just as it closed shut. As they hunkered down, the battle began to space out as Imperials began to give chase to Ewoks and any rebels that went with them. "They're just pathetic creatures, mow them down!" shouted an Imperial officer who was soon met with an arrow to the chest following his outburst. His body slumped down to Del Meeko, who had no time to make note of it, only iterating to Versio and Hask that the rebels at the shield bunker need to be taken care of. Inferno Squad still had quite a way to fight through before reaching that goal. While conflict became the default state all around, there was only one place that was calm for the moment, and shockingly, it was within the very reason that brought everyone here, the Death Star. Unlike the first station, the Emperor had a throne room constructed aboard, and he was present for all that transpired. He wasn't alone either. Standing across from him was the man who had been his apprentice for 26 years, Darth Vader. Vader had been a critical piece in the plan that allowed for him to become the Emperor of the Galactic Empire, and he is just as important in the current plan. Standing beside Vader is the son of Skywalker, the Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker. The Emperor instructs the young Jedi to step forward and peer into the final fate of his rebel friends. As Luke's eyes meet the center of the window, all he can see is so many of his friends dying, and he reaches through the Force for just a moment, hoping to still feel the presence of his sister. Though he found hope in the fact that Leia was still alive, Palpatine introduced the next phase of his dastardly plan. He revealed that the Death Star, despite its current appearance, was fully functional. If his words weren't enough to prove it, he soon ordered for the weapon to be fired at will. It didn't take long before the laser charged and fired upon rebel ships in the fleet. It was certainly frightening for those staring down the technological terror in space, yet it was a whole other level of fear for those down on the surface of Endor. Rebel soldiers could see the ominous structure and could faintly see the laser that emanated from it, though they had no idea what it fired upon. General Solo felt his heart sink because he promised to have that shield generator down before the fleet arrived. Every life lost was due to him, he felt. Commander Iden Versio stopped for a moment to observe the firing of the Death Star from the surface as well. She had a great deal of pride charged through her, as every Imperial did who witnessed this. It was, after all, the next stage of the trap. fool the naive rebels into thinking the Death Star was nothing more than an incomplete outer shell, and then raise them down along with their worthless desire for hope. "Commander!" The call out from Gideon Hask snapped Iden back to the battle blazing before her as he continued. The rebels have formed a series of defenses leading towards the shield generator. Solo and Organa have both been confirmed there. Good, Iden thought as she motioned for the rest of Inferno Squad to push with her. Han Solo and later Organa are public enemies 1 and 2 now that Skywalker is in the clutches of the Empire following his surrender. She would like nothing more than Inferno Squad to be responsible for snuffing the life out of those two. Yet as they push, Iden couldn't help but notice something odd. An Imperial AT-ST marched alongside a pack of rebels, not firing, not attempting to crush them beneath its mechanical feet. She turned to Agent Miko, who had just noticed the same anomaly. "Del, get in contact with the AT-ST. Find out what's going on now." Moments before Agent Miko could, the AT-ST opened fire on them and any other Imperials they could find. "Commander, that walker has been compromised!" Agent Hask yelled as the trees around them began to spark ablaze for the AT-ST fire. Iden circled around, looking for an opportunity to escape the barrage, but she knew they had to deal with the walker immediately, or it was only going to cause more problems. "Agent Hask," Iden called out, "push up to the right flank and get the walker's attention, and try not to die." "Aye, Commander, consider it done." Hask ran forward, firing his blaster towards the viewports of the AT-ST, hoping to nail whoever piloted the stolen vehicle and put an early end to the current plan. Yet even he found it hard to pull off such a feat, with its head turning and unleashing a barrage that nearly left him a pile of ash. As Hask continued, Iden gave Agent Miko his orders. "Miko, there's a ridge to your west that should offer a clear shot of the walker. Get there and wait for our signal." "Got it, Commander. I'm on the move." Agent Miko sprinted into position, readying his blaster against a branch as he got the walker in his sights. The only thing he wondered now was what that signal was going to be. Not before long, he spotted Commander Versio running alongside the walker as it continued firing shots at an elusive Agent Hask. He spied as Iden Versio launched a grenade into the viewport. He anticipated an explosion to rock the cockpit, yet instead, smoke billowed out of every possible opening. Right on cue, the hatch on top opened, and a roaring Wookiee emerged, assisting a couple of Ewoks exit before aiming a bowcaster at Iden below. "Miko, now!" Iden shouted as a blaster bolt ripped through the air, piercing the Wookiee in his chest. The beast let out another terrifying roar as he fought the pain of his new injury, but soon a second and third shot followed, and the Wookiee slumped over as all of Inferno Squad gathered around the scene. Inform the battalion that this AT-ST is clear for use again, and to dispose of the body. Iden instructed Agent Miko what to do next as she turned to the sound of a battle erupting. Agent Hask heard the sounds as well. "That's the shield generator. With all due respect, Commander, we need to get moving." Iden didn't need the passive-aggressive pep talk from Agent Hask to understand that. As soon as Miko returned from his small assignment, Inferno Squad rushed off to end this rebellion once and for all. The Battle of Endor was well underway. Both on the ground and in space, the rebellion and the Empire locked in a conflict that dwarfed any that came before it. Though it was the rebel mission on the surface that proved to be the most crucial, for if it failed, those who piloted craft hoping to destroy the second Death Star would be met with nothing but scorching laser fire from the enemy. General Han Solo undertook leading this team, and he wasn't one for feeling regret. But there was a sunrise in every cycle. As he and Leia hunkered down at the entrance to the Imperial bunker that housed the shield generator controls, he had gotten word of Chewbacca's demise. He would be lying to say that he didn't ponder charging forward at that moment with the sole intention of killing as many stormtroopers as he could before they took him out. The only thing that snapped him back was the woman standing next to him. Leia Organa was the answer to so many questions he posed about his future, and it was that future that kept him going. General Solo! Han's comlink was bustling with rebel chatter every second, and this time it was Captain Rex, the old Clone War relic, who called in. We've got reports the Imperials have activated their Special Forces units. If we don't get that shield down before they get here, this mission will be over. Han knew some rebels to exaggerate their odds in tough situations, hence why he would remind them to never tell him about them. Though Rex had more experience in battle, more so than anyone on the ground at Endor, he was literally bred for this reason. If he saw the severity of the situation, that meant things had to get moving right now. The bunker is still tight. The console's the only way to get in. Han turned to the soldiers in the perimeter and shouted, R2! Somebody find that blasted droid and get him over here! It wasn't long before the astromech rolled his way over, with C-3PO lagging not far behind, trying his best to avoid becoming a target for the approaching Imperials. Once the pair of droids arrived at the bunker, Han made the task clear. Get that blast door open. R2 was plugged into the console without hesitation, as Han thought to himself that that little droid had more courage than some soldiers he's seen. Even 3PO did all he could to help, digging through wires, attempting a manual override. As the battle dragged on, the Emperor continued with his games of mental torture on the young Jedi Knight, Luke Skywalker. Already could Luke feel the suffering of his friends begin to mount, and it felt as though all the weight of that began to wear down on his very existence. His mind filled with regret as he thought back to when he left his friends. In that moment, he believed his destiny lay where he is now, on board this station, with the goal of bringing his father back to the light. Though now, he wondered if he was wrong and should have stayed on Endor with his friends. He heard a faint voice, that of Obi-Wan Kenobi, telling him to banish these thoughts of regret. But with every explosion he saw came increasing amounts of regret. The Emperor could sense that and began feeding from Skywalker's emotional struggle. Skywalker. Palpatine leaned forward, intentionally removing his hand from Luke's lightsaber that nestled into the arm of his throne. There is only one path left for you to take. The emotions you feel will give you strength. Use them and strike me down. It is the only way to save your friends. Luke snapped back in anger at the Emperor. Those words echoed throughout his head, drowning out the warnings of Obi-Wan Kenobi to steer clear of hatred. Without hesitation, Luke reached out with the Force and yanked his saber free of the Emperor's throne. The green blade activated mid-flight as Luke brought the hilt to his hand, and in a motion so quick, he sliced at the Emperor. Only to his shock did he feel the weight of his slash reverberate back to him. Once his vision centered itself, he saw a red blade had come across the path of his, just inches from the Emperor's face. He turned to see Vader had intercepted the blow, saving his master. Skywalker stepped back, if only to center himself once more. Memories of his last duel with Vader flashed in his head. He was naive and ill-prepared then, but now he was a Jedi Knight, the same as his father before Vader took over. He drowned the voice of the Emperor out and focused solely on the Emperor's apprentice. Infernal Squad now began pushing towards the shield bunker, with their full expectation set on achieving victory. Iden Versio led the charge as they navigated through the scorched greenery of Endor's fourth moon. "Commander!" shouted Agent Hask as he pointed to bring Ida's attention to what he saw. "Rebel snipers in the trees! There appear to be villages up there!" "Dank Ferric," Iden whispered under her breath as she signaled for the rest of Infernal Squad to take cover. The order came just in time as blasts of fire ripped through the canopy of leaves, with one shot ricocheting off Iden's armor. "We have to do something about those snipers. They'll slow our advance and any reinforcements." Iden could hear the distant sounds of a soldier yelling at his troops to keep firing. "I may have an idea." Agent Miko snapped back from attempting return fire. "We take down the tree. Once it goes, I'll probably yank that entire village down with it." Agent Haas rounded the tree he used as cover. He's on to something, but I'm out of thermal charges. I'm not. Give me covering fire. Aiden holstered her TL-50 and grabbed the thermal imploder from her utility belt as she sprang forward. Aiden could feel the heat of Hask and Miko's blast of fire radiating as they soared over her, headed upward towards the rebels. As Aiden got closer, she was able to actually see the rebels camped above her. She spied the one giving orders, and to her surprise, he was older than the average soldier. But once she heard the voice, she knew exactly what he was. A clone, Aiden muttered as she darted from tree to tree, getting closer to the base of where they were firing. How much longer, Commander? We're starting to run out of cover! Agent Haas never lacked confidence, but the severity of the mission tends to shake anyone up. I'm arming the charge now, get ready! Aiden thumbed down on the activation switch as a pitched charging noise beeped from the imploder. She lathered at the base of the tree and turned running back to the rest of Inferno Squad. The clone she spotted from below was of course Captain Rex, and he spotted her retreating back to her friends. Any other soldier would have took that moment as a show of the Emperor's cowardice, but Rex had been at this for too long to know what was really happening. Blasted was the last word he said before an explosion ripped at the base of the tree. As a fireball engulfed the base, shrapnel in the form of wood splinters the area. The screams of rebels and Ewoks alive ring out over the sounds of destruction as the tree began its man-caused fall. The villages that hugged itself to it and among the other trees began to be ripped down with a domino effect. Inferno Squad watched as what seemed like the last line of defense before the shield bunker had finally been broken. Onto the bunker then, Commander, asked Agent Miko as the rest of Inferno Squad refocused and pressed on. Blast it all! That's what a clone was, wasn't it? Han Solo heard the explosion an Inferno Squad had caused just moments earlier. Rex had warned him about the Imperial Special Forces being activated on the planet, and if they had gotten to the old clone already, there wasn't much time before they'd be knocking on his doorstep. R2! Where are you on this door? Little Ashley McJoy beeped a sound that Solo hoped meant calm down as the access port clicked. It was then that another blast door sealed itself shut, and one couldn't even begin to describe the sinking feeling Solo felt as he saw that door close. He took a moment to look up to the sky, where he could still see the faint image of the Death Star 2, and even worse, still see it firing on the Rebel fleet. General Calrissian, we need to consider a retreat before it's too late. General Solo and his team are far behind schedule. Admiral Akbar was a battle-hardened fleet commander who had been active since the Clone War. That's why Lando knew there had to be some truth to his warning. He had all the faith he could in his old smuggler friend, but there were a lot of lives at stake, more than ever before. The smaller craft have a better chance of making it out of here, Admiral. I'm afraid if you try to cut tail and run, you're going to be their priority target. Lando now began to weigh the serious options that faced the Rebel fleet, though it wasn't a surprise to learn that Akbar had already taken that issue into account. The Mon Cala veteran looked around his bridge and gave the fair warning. I'm afraid this will be the last voyage for the Home One. If you wish to abandon ship in hopes of making it to a smaller craft, so be it. Though I intend to stay and fight for the rebellion. As his eyes met with each other crew member on deck, the expression for all was the same. They were staying. Very well. Akbar soon raised transmission with every ship in the fleet. This is Admiral Akbar of the Home One. We have sustained far too many casualties to keep up this fight. I am ordering a retreat for all crafts and fighters. This will not be the end, for from ashes rises a new hope. It has been an honor to serve among you all, and may the Force be with you. As the Admiral signed off, many wondered why his message sounded like a farewell in the end before they realized what was taking place. The Home One began a direct charge towards the Executor Star Destroyer. On board the command bridge was Admiral Piet, who looked bewildered at the sight of the Rebel command ship barreling his way. All batteries open fire! The Admiral shouted as a barrage of green bolts splattered the front of the Home One. Engage forward shields to max, and bring rear thrusters to full power! Akbar responded to the Executor's last-ditch effort to stave off what they both knew was about to happen. In that brief moment before the inevitable, he thought back to the sacrifice of Admiral Raddus at Scarif so many years ago. For many, that was the official start of the Galactic Civil War, and Akbar had hoped that Endor would be the end. However, the fighting would still drag on, though he had faith that the rebellion would still achieve victory someday. It was in the very next moment that the bridge of the Home One became so bright, Akbar couldn't make out any direction. The ship began to rock and sway before explosions ripped the bridge into the vacuum of space. In his last moment, he saw the Home One and the Executor both tilted downwards, drifting as the rest of the rebel fleet attempted to evacuate. With no way to reach the ground teams due to Imperial's jamming communications, Calrissian watched Endor one more time before turning the Falcon about face and retreating with what remained of the fleet. "I'm sorry, old pal," Lando said as he engaged the hyperspace of the Falcon. On the surface, the rebels that remained did all they could to hold on, unbeknownst to them that the fleet was already in full retreat. They were trapped by the Empire, and Infernal Squad was closing in to seal the deal. The shield bunker was in range, and Iden could make out what was left of the rebels below. "Commander, the rebel fleet has retreated. At the very least, what's left of it. These fools are trapped, and they don't even know it." Agent Hask seemed to revel in that thought, and though her expression was hidden beneath her helmet, Iden was as well. "Then let's make this quick. Miko, take your shot." Agent Miko took aim with a DLT-19X as he brought the shield bunker in sight. He could see Han Solo, the scoundrel attempting to open the bunker door. He then sighted Leia Organa just next to him. That would be his target. He took a breath, and soon after, a shot. Solo nearly jumped out of his boots as Leia slumped down beside him. "No!" Han yelled as he tossed his blaster and immediately kneeled down to check on her. At that moment, stormtroopers surrounded the bunker, ordering everyone to surrender. Han paid no attention as Leia caressed him one final time. "I love you," she uttered as her hand fell to the ground. Still on board the Death Star, Luke took to hiding from Vader during their duel, but something jarred his entire soul. In that moment, he could feel a coldness brew over him as he searched his feelings to find the answer. In doing so, he discovered what he felt, or rather, what he could no longer feel. The warmth of his sister, Leia, had faded. The one family he had left was gone, and he felt rage grow in the pit of his stomach as he emerged from his hiding and lashed out on Vader. The Emperor watched in amusement as Skywalker's eyes slowly began to become a piercing yellow. He had given in to his anger, and with every moment began to overpower Lord Vader. Soon, young Skywalker was now the one who towered over Vader as the Emperor marched down from his throne with a grin that stretched over his scarred face. "Yes, yes, kill him! Kill him now and take your rightful place at my side." As Luke looked down at his father, he could feel nothing but hatred. He blamed him for the loss of his sister. Even the deaths of his aunt and uncle were on Vader's hands. Skywalker's blade rose in the air before coming down across the chest of Vader. Sparks flew as the panel that sat upon his chest was destroyed, and Vader's body laid on the ground, lifeless. "Very good, very good, my new apprentice." Palpatine walked away, his laughter echoing throughout the throne room as Luke stepped away, standing aside his new master as they watched the Imperial fleet regather at the end of the chaos.